Hey guys, so this is going to be the first training video, I guess we're going to call it, for Protoss. We'll do Terran on Saturdays and Zergs on Sundays. So every Friday we're going to do this for a little bit until I feel like I've kind of covered everything. And then I think once I've kind of finished my series, whenever that'll be, I'll start maybe accepting replays from players that want me to review. Maybe give tips, say what they could do better, that kind of thing, kind of break it down for kind of individual training and just upload those videos as well. But yeah, so for the first videos of the series, we're just going to cover, the basics. So we're going to go over basic macro, basic starting build orders, and we'll kind of build our way up from there and kind of go over the game. So one thing that I constantly harp on and preach is, and that I think is extremely important, that a lot of people don't put enough stock into, is worker production, right? So I know this is a pretty simple concept, but I don't think people really recognize how important it is. And I'll go over a replay later in a little more detail. But essentially, the way you want to kind of prioritize what you're doing, I always say it's workers first, then army, tech depending on the situation, and then macro buildings like gateways, right? So yeah, the most important thing is just workers. You want to keep worker production going as much as possible. Like I said, we'll go over something later and I'll show you how important it is. The basic opening build order is always going to be pylon on 8, and then gateway when you can from there without stopping worker production. I'll go over basic hotkeys and kind of how you want to set it up as well. Something that I actually don't do myself, that I strongly encourage and that I really need to learn, because I think it'll improve my own game as well. So yeah, it's going to be gateway on 10. And see, we didn't miss a beat. Sometimes you'll miss a little bit. Actually, the reason I didn't miss there is because I delayed a probe earlier for a fraction of a second. But there'll be a slight delay. But yeah, that's fine. I personally always prefer opening 2 gate. I do not like a quick 3 gate. I don't think quick 3 gate is good at all. Because you can't really afford 3 gate. If I play 2 gate versus 3 gate and then go into a 3rd gate, I will be on 3 gate quick enough that we're not going to be behind on zealots. So I do pylon before my first zealot, and the reason for that is because it allows you to continue worker production. It delays the first zealot slightly, which really doesn't matter in almost all situations, but it guarantees that you get to continue worker production. So I make a slight sacrifice in army to get worker production going non-stop. So it's first zealot, second zealot, and then you can make another pylon before your next zealot. So this is basically the standard opener that I go with almost every single game, no matter what, unless I'm going basket. But we're not going to worry about builds like that, right? As you can see, my worker production pretty much continues non-stop. Our zealots continue non-stop. See, the pylon finishes just in time that way. And then from there, you just kind of, keep up with it. I don't really have specifics from there on out. Typically, the way I'll do it is I'll continue on 2 gate for a pretty long time. Once my economy is getting strong enough, you can either add a 3rd gateway or start working towards tech, depending on the situation. And later videos will cover exact ways to adapt based on the game state and what everybody's doing. Okay, so here's what I'm going to teach. I'm going to go and throw a 3rd gateway down, and we're going to go over hotkeys a little bit. So a pretty basic setup for hotkeys. Okay, you can do it however you feel like you need to do it, but I'll just do kind of a basic outline, and you can adjust whatever hotkeys you want to use accordingly. So what I would suggest, it's going to be hard for me because I don't follow this well enough myself, but we'll get there. So whenever you're fighting, say you have your army out here, you're fighting something, right? So you got your army out here and you're fighting, and you don't want to look back at your base. set your gateways to 1, 2, 3 in the beginning, right? 3 gateways can cover you on macro for a pretty long time. You will need to like keep up with pylons still, obviously, but if you're continuing 3 gateway production, you're not gonna flow much money at all. So say you're out of here fighting and you can't look away from the fight, you're trying to micro, you can quickly just 1, 2, 3 queue up your zealots, right? You can either click, you can use Z, whatever works best for you, and you can cycle through your gateways without ever having to look away. I keep my army on 4 is what I would recommend, something along those lines. That way, if you do need to go back to your base, and the reason you would need to is either to almost always workers, buildings, pylons, whatever, which you can do your nexus for whatever you want, like 5, 0, something like that, and then just double tap forward to go back to your army, right? So you would double tap your, like you're fighting for a bit, right? You're going through your cycling, your supply is getting high, double tap your nexus, get a probe, get more probes, and then back to the fight, right? It'll take a lot of practice if you're not used to it, but when you get used to this, when this becomes second nature, it will make a huge difference, continuing non-stop macro, continuing non-stop probe production without having to stop micro in your army. That's kind of like the basic setup. I would say that's very, very basic. So we'll go over a replay where I can kind of show you a little bit of how it'll play out. And I'll show you more the importance of workers. We're going to put a lot of emphasis on workers right now. This was during my 24-hour stream attempt, but I think this game pretty well summarizes the importance of macro. Okay. The game does not go smoothly, but the main thing that I want you guys paying attention to that we're going to be watching is going to be the worker count and how I distribute workers amongst my bases, right? So we'll kind of skip the beginning. If you watch workers, so this always happens, right? For me in the beginning. So because of my opener, you'll see that I'm like slightly ahead in workers. Actually, Toss is right there with me. Okay, so Toss is good. I get a little bit ahead of Toss, I'm pretty sure as well, and I think it's because of my opener, right? Because I do Pylon before Gateway, or before Zealot. So there, see, he starts a Zealot. Let's actually see if it plays out the way I think it would. Although he might even not continue pro production here. Well, he doesn't have money, right? So because he starts Zealot, he's not going to have money. Almost want to go back and look at what he did to see why that's happening. Whereas I already had mine queued up, so it might just be better splitting or something, we'll see. But see, he goes Zealot, his supply is 15 out of 17, right? Whereas I go, so now he starts his Pylon, my Pylon's finishing, right? So he basically has to make a choice. He's at 16 supply right now, so he can't start a second Zealot. I guess he can start his next probe instead. Okay, so his probe finished, right? And he can't have it queued up. It's not started yet because his Pylon's not ready yet. So he loses just a little bit. I know that doesn't seem like much, but I'm almost an entire probe ahead. Now the thing that I wanted to say to you guys about especially the beginning, okay? The smallest differences in probe production makes a big difference in the long run. So my probe's just a little bit faster than his, right? So my probe's done, my probe's mining. Then his starts mining. Okay, so he lost almost a full return, right? Which is like 8 minerals, not that big of a deal. But that can be the difference in getting your next probe or your next zealot a little bit faster, because I put emphasis on workers. My next worker is going to be that much faster, right? So that means that I get my next set of minerals faster, which can make my next probe faster, etc., etc. So you can kind of snowball your lead. It's typically not going to go straight into workers, like it's going to be things like zealots and pylons and stuff, but that's why, like, my early supply is almost always ahead. So there's been, I don't think he's lost anything. Okay, maybe he did. He may have lost. He may have lost a little bit. Let's backtrack a little bit and see. I've kind of been watching workers right now. We're really focused on workers right now. Yeah, I think the zealot dies. So he does lose the zealot early. But anyway, sorry. The important thing, look at this, right? So I'm up 2 workers right now. If you watch my games, I am almost always, if not literally always, ahead in workers. And as you guys probably know, most of my games, I'm very, very strong in the macro game, and I think this is part of it. I think worker production is extremely important. So we can kind of skip through a lot of this. We'll just keep an eye on workers. At some point I do fall behind a little bit, or they catch back up. Yeah, see, like, they catch back up. I kind of mess up a little bit because I go 4-gate. The reason I went 4-gate was because I thought our turn was going to go mech, but he went Wraith. I think it's double toss. We won't get into that. Don't do that, please. So I was on 4-gate. 4-gate's not a good build, but I was relying on a teammate. That is what it is. So yeah, you look at workers. I'm staying ahead in workers pretty much the whole time. We're in kind of a bad situation. Like, they have map controller. Zerg is pretty weak. Their Zerg has Muta out. I went 4-gate, no gas for a very long time. So I get ready to start my natural because, like, we're secure here, right? I just need to get anti-air before I did. That's the only reason I delayed it as long as I did. So we're going to discuss another very, very important reason as to why it's good to continue worker production. So right now I'm up 10 workers, right? And typically, to fully saturate, you want about 35 on your mineral line. Like, 35 might even be slightly oversaturated, right? So I've overproduced probes. At this point, I'm not really getting anything extra. Like, they're fully saturated here. So their income's not going to be much lower than mine. It might be slightly lower, but it's not going to be that much lower. But here's the big difference, right? When my Nexus finishes, and I transfer, okay. So my Nexus is done. My transfer is a little bit late. We are doing some stuff. So look, I transfer, right? A lot. What do I transfer here? I transferred 12. Okay, so I transferred 12 plus another 4. So we do 16 transfer. Look at my mineral line here, right? Immediately, completely, fully saturated. Okay, and my main base, pretty close to fully saturated. Like, I end up making some more probes to replenish. So basically, what this means is, because of my overproduction on probes on one base, when I do my transfer, my income doesn't even slow down on this base much into an instant full saturation. My money completely explodes. One mistake that I made was I was not prepared for it, and I should have done, because I know better. But I should have already been making extra gateways, because I knew this would happen. So that's actually one mistake I made when I didn't properly prepare for my big income boon that I knew was coming. So I'd start making more gateways. I start, spending the extra money on tech, double upgrades, that kind of thing. So let's look at our opponents, right? If we look at our opponents, he's 13 less workers than me, right? So this is a fully saturated main, maybe slightly undersaturated, and not even close to a fully saturated expansion, right? Same for Landowner, who he may only have 7 less workers than me, but if you look at the actual income, like, this is very undersaturated, so it's not even close. And all of this time that he's not mining, my macro is getting that much further ahead, right? Like, my bank is pretty big. I'm up 10 supply. If I spend, that 700 to get us even, then I'll be up another, 14 supply if I do, like, Zealots. He transfers a bunch here, and I actually was going to mention this. So he transfers here, and this is why I think distribution is extremely important. Okay, so he does a big transfer here. Wait, where did it go? Oh, he transferred up there. Oh, I think he loses these at some point. Hang on, let's actually keep an eye on that then. So he transferred there, but essentially because this isn't fully saturated and his main is also undersaturated, he still has less income than me. Like, yeah, he has 3 more bases, he has the same number of probes, but our income's actually pretty close to the same. He might be slightly ahead in income now with that, right? Because he's on 3 Nexus, 3 base, he gets to distribute a little bit better. So I would say he's probably a little bit further ahead. He does have a lot of idle ones, so maybe not quite yet with all the idle probes. So we got 7 idle, 8 idle. So there's actually a big part of it too. So he has 8 idle probes, so technically he's mining with 10 less than me, so he might not even be ahead even though he's on 3 Nexus. He just now started it. So let's think about this. Think about how long ago I got my expansion up and fully saturated, right? So we can say, yeah, he's even with me now. How long have I been ahead in income, right? For a very, very long time. We've managed to break through mid in that entire time while we were down pretty largely. We were down. We didn't get to push out with mech, so we have that advantage. But we've managed to break through in a situation where we should have never been able to take back mid, to be honest with you. And they have like the entire map while we're stuck down in this corner. So he's just now caught up to me in income. Toss probably is about the same in income now. Like, this base can hold, you know, more workers better. So it's probably about the same, but yeah, they're just really far behind at this point. Supply-wise, landowner is actually doing fine, but I do have a pretty large bank. And we're also getting better trades because I do have mech behind me as well, which makes it easier to trade. But that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to talk about for today. Just really focused on macro and like the basics, right? The basics of macro. I think macro alone, without even having much game sense and that kind of thing, if you macro really well, can drastically improve your win rate. So yeah, we're going over macro right now. We're going to be really focused. Even when I'm going over other things, we're still going to constantly go back to pro production and macro, right? Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up everything I want to go over today. Like, I did lose some workers because I had meter come by, but ended up replacing them back up to 65. Landowner's on 66. But the thing about that is, even though we're on even workers, like, one last thing, we see this base is not fully saturated anymore, and this one is oversaturated, so the distribution is not good. I think he transferred a bunch over because he was like taking damage, so yeah, he's moving back now. But it's just like these little things, like little delays and things like that make a big difference. The game's over at this point, obviously, but it can make big differences at certain stages in the game. Anyway, yeah, so basically just remember the build opener was an 8 pylon. Gateway after that, continue pro production, second gateway, then you do 2 zealots, third pylon, and then just kind of, you know, whatever from there. Remember the hotkeys, practice your hotkey setup. However you need to set it up, just have 3 gateways set to your hotkey, your army set to 1 hotkey, or 2 of your over 12 zealots, and your nexus set to another, so that you can just double click it and go back. Yeah, that'll pretty much do it for today. If you have any questions or anything else you want to know about, just let me know in the comments, and I will gladly go over it in my next video. But yeah, I think we covered it pretty well today. But thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to discuss this stuff with you, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.